Hey, Walt here from StogieReview.com with another video cigar review. Today I had a fairly long day, and I really thought it was time to take a break, just sit back, relax, and have a nice cigar. And I was digging through my cooler, and I came across a cigar that I hadn't had in quite some time, and it's actually a Macanudo, not the Macanudo that you're thinking of. This is the Macanudo 1968. It is a cigar that came out a couple of years ago, and it seems to... There we go again with the camera not focusing. The cigar, when it came out, seemed to make quite the stir, for whatever reason. I talked to a couple cigar reps that were actually kind of bitter about it. We're talking about how it was only a Macanudo in name. It was not going to be appealing to the true Macanudo smokers. It was going to be a flop, and just regular negativity. I guess they were kind of bitter because it came out of IPCPR with actually quite a bit of buzz behind it. And everyone I talked to that smoked it were pretty impressed by it. It wasn't your average Macanudo. It wasn't overly mild. It wasn't these super gentle, soft flavors that were meant for the occasional cigar smoker or someone that just liked ultra mild cigars. This was something that really ramped it up in terms of flavor intensity and body, and what everyone thought of as an ultra mild cigar in a Macanudo wound up being kind of medium bodied, medium to full flavored, and it seemed to do really well. So it's been quite a while since I've had one. I think the last one I purchased was probably from Kensington before they closed a couple of years ago, and I have not bought one since. So every once in a while I stumble onto one kind of buried in the cooler. This one just happened to be sitting on top when I opened it up and started. I was planning on opening up the cooler and starting and rummaging through it, looking for something to smoke, and this one was kind of perched on top from the last time I was digging around. So I thought it was a good day to light one up and just see if it smoked as well as I remember it smoking a couple of years ago. So I've got to imagine that this one has at the very least 1 year of age on it. So we'll kind of go from there. We'll go through the cigar, see if it's still a decent stick with a little bit of age on it, see if it's something worth tracking down. I'm not sure whether Macanudo still makes these. I would imagine they were, or I would imagine that they do still make them. It's probably something I should do in just a second, is look them up and see if we can still buy them. But I'll do that after I kind of unwind a little bit. My wife just got home from class, and we had dinner together, and she was telling me about her fantastic day. So she's studying to be a nurse. She's in an LPN class right now, and they're doing this. I don't know what what the technical term is, but they are on the baby floor, so birthing and whatnot. And my wife was on the same floor for training last week, and there was a woman who was getting ready to give birth, but just kind of stalled out. And for my wife's entire shift, the woman was just kind of hanging out and not getting any further along. So that was kind of uneventful. But this week, my wife, a woman that she was taking care of, had a C-section, so she watched a doctor cut a little person out of another person and was telling me how awesome her day was. And I told her I probably would have fainted because I don't like the sight of blood, and nursing is definitely not the call, not the field for me. She went on to tell me about how the doctor pulled the uterus out and burned the tubes, and she got to cut the cord, and it's kind of gross, but she enjoyed it. So I'm kind of working off that little bit of dizziness and envisioning all that, and enjoying my cigar. I've got a cup of coffee here. It is pretty hot outside, but I don't care. I'm just kind of relaxing. I got a fan blowing on me, so the cigar may start to burn a little funky at some point, but so far it's making for a good early evening cigar. Well, it's still really early on my Macanudo 1968. But I've got to say, it's doing pretty well this early on. Before I lit this up, I knew that it was going to be a bigger, bolder cigar than what was in my mind. It is every single time I light up a Macanudo 1968. I know that they're a big step up from the traditional Macanudo line, the really mild stuff, but I never quite remember how much of a step up it is. So, you kind of get slapped around a little bit with some spiciness and some pepperiness. The smoke has got a little bit of bite to it, so it is a little aggressive on the palate. Um, it does hit the sinus kind of hard when you retrohale. It is something that will kind of beat on you and wear you down throughout the course of the cigar, and it's starting in on that already. There's not a whole lot going on flavor-wise. There's a lot of pepper, a lot of spice. There's a little bit of like a cinnamon accent to the spice, especially during the retrohale, which is kind of interesting. I don't get that sort of spice very often. So it's got some bite to it, and then it's got this little bit of a cinnamon essence mixed in, and it makes for an interesting smoke. The draw is a little bit stiffer than I would like, but it's doing pretty well. The smoke coats the palate well. It provides a good volume of smoke. It's not really airy or anything like that. So on the construction front, it's doing well. There's not a whole lot going on in the flavor department. Medium bodied, medium to full flavored. So the first half inch, 3/4 of an inch, it's off to a good start, but we've got a really long way to go. So, all right. So I mentioned that today was a long day, and it kind of was. My daughter woke up last night and was just crying in the middle of the night. It took us quite a while to get her back down, and I knew my wife had to get up early, so I kept telling her to go back to bed, and I was, kind of running around for my daughter. She had to go to the bathroom, so we take her in the bathroom, take her back to bed, and then she wants something to drink, so, I go get her something to drink, and of course, the drink I bring her isn't the drink that she wants, so I go back and I get her another drink, and of course, this drink, while it is the correct drink, it doesn't have a straw, and she wants a straw, so it's, when she's crying the whole time, she's just, very upset. I don't quite know what was going on, but it took me a little while to get her back down. This was about 2 o'clock in the morning. If it were a little bit later, I probably would have just stayed up. But in this case, I went back to sleep. I woke up when my wife left for school, and she was just feeling kind of miserable. And eventually I wound up waking my daughter up, and we went out to mow the lawn. I live in a small borough, and we don't have a homeowners association, but we do have local borough ordinances that say, your grass can't be more than 6 inches long, and you've got to shovel your sidewalk within 24 hours of the last snowflake hitting the ground, that sort of thing. And we have an older guy that just drives around in a code enforcement car all day long. It must be a full-time job for him, and because he's doing it all day long, he must feel compelled to write as many warnings and tickets as possible to make his job worthwhile, I guess. The township has to, or the borough needs to cover that cost somehow. So anytime my grass gets about 6.5 inches tall, I get these warning notices taped to my mailbox. And the problem that I have is that my house is on a big hill, and anytime there's rain, which we've seen a lot of recently, I like to give it at least a day to air out or to dry out a little bit, because I'm mowing in such steep areas in parts of the lawn. I'm really afraid I'll lose the mower or slip or something. And if my mower starts to go downhill, I don't think it's going to stop until it gets to the street. A couple of weeks ago, I picked up a used archery target for my daughter. I got this bedded doe, and it's a 3D foam target that comes apart in a couple of different pieces. I think there's actually 3 pieces to this target. And I'm carrying the target up the hill to get it set up where my daughter can shoot at it, and the target fell apart. And one of the pieces slipped out. And of course it hits the ground and it starts rolling down the hill. Well, now I gotta chase this thing down the hill. I wound up falling on top of it, probably 50 yards from where I dropped it. And had I not fell on it, it would have easily hit the street. If it didn't hit one of the parked cars, it would have wound up across the street, either hitting someone's house, or it would have went into their yard, who is also on a hill because we're on top of like a mountain. And God only knows where it would have went, because it's kind of round and oblong. It just would have kept rolling and rolling and rolling. So anyway, because of the steep areas of my yard, I don't like to mow it when the ground is wet. So, when we get a decent rain and then we get a day of sunshine, immediately following, the grass grows. quickly, really quickly. And every time that happens, I get that's the same sticker on my mailbox, and it's really annoying because it comes with a 24-hour warning. If the grass isn't cut within 24 hours, it's $100 fine. And so I had to get up bright and early, and while I'm sure the guy wouldn't have been driving around at 11:05 when he wrote my warning, I wanted to be far underway by 11:05. So I get up, get my daughter out. We were out mowing, I think about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and finally got that done. Then I got some stuff done around the house, and it's just been a fairly long day, and this cigar was really needed. So I'm finally sitting down, unwinding. I'm probably gonna watch an episode of Band of Brothers. I did finish up The Sopranos 2 or 3 days ago. I watched the last episode, and I'm kind of torn. It feels like it ended a little short. I kind of like when a series runs 7 to 8 seasons. Sopranos ran 6, and I don't know. I guess the ending was kind of deep. I didn't quite get it. Cutting to black. I guess I can see the build up. He's dead. I guess. I don't know. I hear that it's a phenomenal ending. It's cinematic, and there's all this meaning behind it, but. I don't know, maybe I just like my endings a little dumber. I would have liked to have definitively known what happened. If he got shot, could we hear the gunshot? What happens there? So we're kind of under the assumption, or at least I'm under the assumption that he got shot in the cafe or wherever they were, and that's kind of the way The Sopranos ended. So that series is over. I'm starting in on Band of Brothers next. Jerry recommended that I try the Pacific after the Band of Brothers. I don't know whether that's on Amazon Prime. I'll have to look. It all depends on the date, when the last show airing was. I think it's like 10 years or something. And anything 10 years or older from HBO is available on Amazon Prime for subscribers. So if the Pacific is on there, I'll watch it. But right now we're gonna start in on Band of Brothers. So sit tight. I'll be right back. We'll talk more about the cigar, I promise. We're probably at about 10 minutes of video, if not more, and probably a minute 30 seconds of that is of the cigar. So I promise we'll talk about it more when I return. Well, I'm plugging along with my Macanudo 1968, and it's going fairly well. Every time I light up one of these cigars, it's more bold and more powerful than I remember, because I know that it's a big step up from the Macanudo lineup in general, but I never know, or I can never remember how much of a step it is. So, I'm expecting, mild to medium, maybe medium bodied, and then I light up the Macanudo 1968 and you kind of get slapped in the face, and it's, medium, maybe medium to full bodied, medium to full flavored, and the smoke seems to be kind of aggressive. It's got a bite to it that really wears down on the palate, and when you retrohale, it's kind of aggressive there as well. It's got a heavy, spicy presence. It's got a little bit of a cinnamony aroma to it that kind of comes through at the tail end. It makes for a really interesting spice note, and it's kind of cool. It's something that I don't get in a lot of cigars, but it has a tendency to really be hard on the sinus and on the palate. So at about the halfway point, you're really feeling kind of beaten up, and that is a massive step up from what I remember with the traditional Macanudo lines. So in a sense, you really do have just a Macanudo in name. This is nothing like anything else that they make, and I can't really say whether that's good or bad. If I was a Macanudo smoker, I probably wouldn't like this, or I probably wouldn't like the direction General went with this cigar. Being as though I'm not, I kind of like that it is very different. But so far, the cigar really isn't winning me over at this point. It's got some earthy flavors and some pepperiness that lingers on the palate, and it's got that really interesting cinnamon note through the nose. But outside of that, there isn't a whole lot that's winning me over. It's kind of it's aggressive. It's bitey. So it's making me feel worn out. The finish is. It's not creamy, but it's not dry. So, I don't know, it's kind of neutral. So when you've got this neutral texture along with, I don't want to say basic flavors, but they don't have a lot of nuance behind them. So there's really nothing to win me over at this point. In a nutshell, it's not bad. It's a good middle of the road cigar, but so far, it's not winning me over. And again, I don't know how old the cigar is, so I don't know what changed. If this is a toned down version of a fresh one, then that's saying a lot, because this one is pretty aggressive with everything that it's got going on. So far, it's a decent middle of the road cigar. Well, I'm coming down the home stretch of my Macanudo 1968, and I really have no idea where I am with this review. A little while ago, my brother stopped up. He was here for about 45 minutes. I set the cigar down in the ashtray and just totally forgot about it while he was here. And then after he left, I sat back down, lit it back up, and finished watching the second episode of Band of Brothers, which was an awesome episode. It was just action-packed. The last two-thirds of the episode was just gunfire and trench warfare, and it was just fantastic. But I've been smoking this for a little while now. Even if you take out the chunk in which this was just sitting in the ashtray, the smoke time on this has been pretty solid. You get a thin and even burn line. It provides a decent amount of smoke. The ash, on the other hand, is kind of weak. I had two big chunks of ash fall in my lap. Neither one were really big. I mean, we're talking 3/4 of an inch maybe. So shorter than I generally like to keep the ash before I knock it off, in preventative measures of it falling on me. But in this case, it just kind of fell, and once it hit me, it just kind of exploded and went everywhere, and that happened twice. Smoke volume is good. It coats the palate. It's still pretty aggressive. It's really bitey, and it's kind of irritating my mouth. It's irritating my throat a little bit, and there's a lot of like a spicy punch through the sinus. So it's kind of battering me on all fronts, and even the resting smoke is it's a bit aggressive. It'll take your breath away if you have a stream of smoke hit you right in the face. Flavor-wise, there isn't much going on. You get a little bit of an earthy taste. There's just a touch of like a vegetal aftertaste during the after the smoke leaves the palate, and the flavors linger a little bit. There's a little bit of a vegetal taste there. I'm still getting a lot of spice through the sinus. Still getting that little bit of a cinnamon note, which is still quite nice. I really like that little bit of a twist that the cigar has going on. There's some pepper that lingers around on the palate, and again, everything's kind of aggressive. So, I mean, in a nutshell, it's kind of a middle of the road cigar. It's not something that I would urge you to run out and try to find, even though you probably won't find very many of them, since it appears as though the cigar has been discontinued. But it's a decent cigar for just one of those odd occasions. If you walk into a cigar shop and you see a Macanudo's 1968 sitting on the shelf, and you see it at a discount price because they're not moving. It wouldn't be a bad cigar to pick up and try. I don't remember what the price point was on them. Probably in the $6 range, I would imagine. Again, it's been a couple of years since I purchased one, but there's not really a whole lot to say about it. It's just a half decent, middle of the road cigar that performs decently. So that's kind of it. I think that's going to do it for the review. And like I said, I really don't know where I am. I don't remember what I've talked about, because I started this review with the assumption that the cigar was still available. So once I discovered that it wasn't available anymore, I just kind of cut it and then restarted. And I don't remember what I said before and what I said now. So it's just kind of a hodgepodge, messy edition of a cigar review. But it was fun. So I'm going to finish my cigar. I'm going to watch probably one more episode of Band of Brothers before I call it a night. And then that'll be that. So I will see you next week. Take it easy and happy smoking.